A millionaire wakes up at 2:47 a.m. to find his nanny dancing in yellow rubber gloves while his twin babies laugh hysterically. But when he discovers what she's been hiding from him every single night for 6 months, he breaks down crying. What he learns in the next 10 minutes will make him realize he's been paying someone else to love his own children while he ran from the most painful truth of his life. This is a story about a man who had everything except what mattered most, and one woman in yellow gloves who showed him what he'd been missing. Stay with me, because this will change how you see everything. Welcome to the story room. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Let me tell you exactly how it happened. James Richardson was a tech entrepreneur in Seattle. At 40 years old, he built a software company worth millions. He lived in a beautiful house overlooking Puget Sound, drove expensive cars, wore designer suits. On paper, his life looked perfect. But if you looked closer, you'd see a man running from his pain. It was a Tuesday night when everything changed. The clock read 2:47 a.m. when James woke up suddenly. His heart was racing, though he didn't know why. Then he heard it. Music. Faint, but definitely music. And something else. Laughter. Children laughing. His twin daughters, Emma and Lily, were only 16 months old. At this hour, they should be fast asleep in their nursery down the hall. James threw off his covers and walked barefoot across the cold hardwood floor. The sounds grew louder as he approached their room. Music playing softly. Giggling. A woman's voice singing. He reached the doorway and stopped dead in his tracks. The sight before him was so unexpected, so strange, that for a moment he just stood there frozen. The nursery was painted a soft lavender color. In the corner stood 2 white cribs. But his daughters weren't sleeping. They were wide awake, sitting up in their cribs, their little hands clapping together. Emma wore pink pajamas with stars on them. Lily wore purple ones with moons. Their faces were lit up with pure joy, their mouths open in delighted laughter. And in the middle of the room, dancing like nobody was watching, was his nanny, Grace. Grace was a young woman of about 27. She wore her usual work clothes, a simple gray dress with a white collar. But what caught James's attention were the bright yellow rubber gloves on her hands, the kind you use for washing dishes. She had white earbuds in, connected to her phone, and she was moving to music only she could hear. Her eyes were closed, her arms raised above her head, those yellow gloves waving in the air like she was conducting an orchestra. The twins were mesmerized. Every time Grace spun around, they clapped harder. Every time she raised her arms, they squealed with delight. It was like watching the best show they'd ever seen. Then Grace opened her eyes and saw James standing in the doorway. The joy on her face vanished instantly, replaced by pure terror. She yanked the earbuds from her ears, her hands trembling as she pulled off the yellow gloves. "Mr. Richardson," she stammered, her voice shaking. I can explain. Please, I'm so sorry." The twins saw their father and started bouncing excitedly. Dada, they called out, their little voices full of happiness. James couldn't speak. His mind was trying to process what he was seeing. It was almost 3 in the morning. His daughters were supposed to be asleep, and his nanny was dancing in rubber gloves. Grace's eyes filled with tears. "I know it's the middle of the night," she said quickly, her words tumbling over each other. "I know they should be sleeping. Please don't fire me, Mr. Richardson. I need this job so badly. My family depends on the money I send home." James finally found his voice. "What is going on here?" he asked. His tone wasn't angry, just confused. Completely and utterly confused. Grace took a shaky breath. "Emma woke up about an hour ago," she explained, pointing to the twin in pink. "She was crying so hard. Teething, I think. I gave her the medicine you keep in the cabinet, but it didn't help. Then Lily woke up too, and they both just kept crying and crying." She looked down at the yellow gloves in her hands, as if surprised to find them there. "I tried everything I could think of. Rocking them. Singing lullabies. Warm bottles of milk. Walking around the room. Nothing worked. They just cried louder." James listened, feeling something uncomfortable stirring in his chest. I was so tired and frustrated, Grace continued, her voice getting quieter. Then I remembered something from when I was little. My mother used to dance with me when I couldn't sleep. So I thought, maybe it would work. I put in my earbuds because I didn't want to wake you up. And I just started dancing. She looked at the twins, who were watching her with wide, adoring eyes. They stopped crying immediately, started laughing instead. I've never seen them so happy. James stared at Grace, then at his daughters, then back at Grace. A question was forming in his mind. One he wasn't sure he wanted to ask, because he had a feeling the answer would hurt. How long have you been doing this? He asked carefully. The dancing, I mean. Grace shook her head quickly. This is the first time I've danced like this. I promise. That's not what I'm asking. James's voice was quiet now. How long have you been getting up with them in the middle of the night? Grace hesitated. She looked away, toward the window where the city lights twinkled in the distance. Grace, James pressed gently. How long? Every night, she whispered. Sometimes twice a night. Sometimes 3 or 4 times. James felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Every night? For how long? Since I started working here. 6 months ago. The room seemed to tilt. James reached out and steadied himself against the doorframe. 6 months. 180 nights. And he'd never woken up. Not once. And you never said anything? He asked. Never complained? Never asked for overtime pay. Grace looked genuinely confused by the question. Why would I? Babies wake up at night. That's completely normal. Taking care of them is my job. But James struggled to find words. Every single night for 6 months, Grace. When was the last time you got a full night's sleep? She thought about it. Before I started here, I suppose. And your last day off? Grace bit her lip. About 3 months ago. But you offered me days off, Mr. Richardson. You've been very fair about that. I'm the one who said no. Why did you say no? Because the girls had separation anxiety, Grace explained, as if it were obvious. Remember? Every time I tried to leave for a day off, Emma would cry for hours. It broke my heart. So I decided to stay. That was my choice, not yours. James walked slowly into the room and picked up Emma. She immediately snuggled into his shoulder, her tiny hand grabbing his shirt. She was so warm, so trusting. When had he last held her like this? Really held her, not just a quick hug before rushing out the door to another meeting? Tell me something honestly, James said, looking at Grace over Emma's head. Why do you do this job? Really, truly, why? Grace's expression softened. For the first time since James had walked in, she smiled a little. Because I love children, she said simply. I grew up in a small town in Montana. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. I practically raised my younger brothers and sisters while my parents worked on our farm. She walked over to Lily's crib and gently touched the baby's hair. When you take care of someone who depends on you completely, who trusts you with everything they are, there's no feeling in the world like it. It's pure. It's real. James watched as Lily grabbed Grace's finger and held on tight. These two, Grace continued, her voice full of warmth, they're amazing. Emma is careful about everything. She watches and thinks before she tries something new. But Lily? Lily just jumps right in, no fear at all. They're only 16 months old, and they already have such different personalities. How is that not the most incredible thing? James felt tears building behind his eyes. He blinked them back, but they came anyway. Their mother, he said, his voice cracking, she died when they were 3 months old. Car accident. Hit by a drunk driver on her way home from the grocery store. She never got to see who they're becoming. Never got to know that Emma is careful and Lily is fearless. I know, Grace said softly. You told me when you interviewed me for the job. And I know you work so much to provide for them, to give them everything they could ever need. She paused, then spoke very gently. But Mr. Richardson, they don't need more money or a bigger house or expensive toys. They need you. Just you. Those words hit James like a freight train. He looked down at Emma in his arms, then over at Lily in her crib. Both girls were looking at him with such pure, unconditional love. They didn't care about his company or his success or his money. They just wanted their dad. How often do they wake up? He asked, though he already knew the answer would hurt. Every night, Grace said. At their age, it's completely normal. Sometimes it's teething. Sometimes bad dreams. Sometimes they just want comfort. Usually between 2 and 4 times each night. And I've never heard them. Not once. Your bedroom is on the other side of the house, Grace pointed out. And you usually work until midnight, then you're exhausted. You sleep deeply. James felt the full weight of it now, crushing down on him like a physical thing. After his wife Sarah died, he'd thrown himself into work. 16, 18, sometimes 20-hour days. He told himself it was for the girls. He was building the company, making money, securing their future. He hired Grace, the best nanny money could buy, because he wanted his daughters to have the best care. But the truth was much simpler and much more painful. He was hiding. James sat down on the floor, right there in his expensive suit. The hardwood was cold beneath him. Emma squirmed in his arms, wanting to be put down. He set her gently on the floor, and she immediately crawled over to her sister's crib, reaching up her little arms. They do that every night, Grace said quietly. If one is upset, the other wants to be close. They comfort each other. James watched his daughters, these 2 little people he'd created with Sarah, the love of his life. They were growing up, developing personalities, learning to love and comfort each other. And he was missing it. He'd been paying someone else to witness all of it while he hid in his office, buried in work, running from his grief. I'm sorry, he whispered, and suddenly, he was crying. Really crying, for the first time since Sarah's funeral. Grace, I'm so sorry. Mr. Richardson. No, please listen. He looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. You've been doing this alone. Every night for 6 months, you've been taking care of my daughters. You've been getting up when they cry. You've been comforting them when they're scared. You've been loving them when I was too broken to do it myself. Grace's eyes filled with tears too. You're not broken. I am, James interrupted. Or I was. Every time I looked at them, I saw Sarah. Emma has her eyes. Lily has her smile. And it hurt so much I couldn't breathe. So, I ran away. I hired you and told myself I was being practical, being a good provider. But really, I was just a coward. He buried his face in his hands. I was paying you to do what I should have been doing. I was paying you to be their mother because they didn't have one, and I couldn't face being both parents. The room was quiet except for the soft sounds of the babies playing on the floor. Grace sat down next to James. Can I tell you something? She asked gently. He nodded, not trusting his voice. Grief doesn't make you a bad father, Grace said. It makes you human. You lost your wife, the mother of your children. That's one of the hardest things a person can go through. And yes, you've been working a lot. You've been distant. But you're here now. That's what matters. But I've missed so much. They're 16 months old, Grace interrupted firmly. They have their whole lives ahead of them. And so do you. It's not too late, Mr. Richardson. It's never too late to start showing up. James looked at her through his tears. When I saw you dancing tonight, he said, with those yellow gloves, making them laugh like that.
Sarah used to dance with them.
When they were newborns, before the accident. She'd hold one in each arm and spin around the living room, singing off-key to whatever was on the radio. He smiled at the memory, even through his tears. She was a terrible singer. Absolutely awful. But she didn't care. She'd sing at the top of her lungs, making up words when she didn't know them, and the girls would stop crying and just stare at her like she was the most amazing thing in the world. She sounds wonderful, Grace said softly. She was. James wiped his eyes. And tonight, when I saw you dancing, I saw her spirit. I saw everything she would have wanted for our daughters. Someone who loves them enough to dance in rubber gloves at 3 in the morning. You gave them that. You've been giving them that every single day. Grace was crying now too. They're special girls. And you're a special person. James stood up, decision made. Starting tomorrow, Things are going to change. First, you're getting 2 full days off every week. Non-negotiable.
You need rest.
You need a life outside of this house. And if you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to subscribe, because this is only the beginning. Mr. Richardson. Second, we're going to discuss your salary. I'm doubling it at minimum. That's too much. It's not nearly enough, James said firmly. But more importantly than any of that, starting tonight, you're not doing this alone anymore. We're going to alternate nights. You take one night, I take the next. These are my daughters. I should be the one getting up with them. Grace stared at him. But your work can wait, James finished. My company will survive if I cut back my hours. But my daughters? They're only going to be this age once. I've already missed 6 months. I'm not missing any more. He walked over to where Emma and Lily were playing on the floor. They both looked up at him and reached out their arms. Dada, they said together, and James felt his heart crack open. He picked them both up, one in each arm, just like Sarah used to do. They were heavier than he remembered. When had they gotten so big? I've got a question, he said to Grace, trying to smile through his tears. The dancing with the rubber gloves, is that a real childcare technique? Or were you just making it up? Grace laughed, wiping her own tears. Completely made up. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Then let's make desperate measures more common around here, James said. He looked at his daughters, really looked at them. Starting now, I'm going to be the dad you deserve. I promise. Mr. Richardson, you have that conference call at 9 tomorrow morning, Grace reminded him gently. With the investors from Japan. You've been preparing for weeks. James didn't hesitate. I'll cancel it. But it's important. My daughters are more important. He said it with such finality that Grace just nodded. James sat in the rocking chair, holding both girls. Emma was already getting drowsy, her head heavy on his shoulder. Lily was still wide awake, playing with the collar of his shirt. Grace, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did I wake up tonight? James looked at her seriously. 6 months you've been doing this. 180 nights. And I never woke up once. Why night?
Grace thought about it.
Maybe you were supposed to, she said finally. Maybe you were ready to wake up. James considered this. I had a dream, he said quietly. Right before I woke up. Sarah was in it. We were in our old apartment before we moved here, before we had money. We were just sitting on our cheap couch, eating takeout, laughing about something stupid. He paused, remembering. She looked at me in the dream and said, Stop hiding, James. They need you. Stop hiding. Then I woke up and heard the music. Maybe it was her way of telling you it's time, Grace said softly. Time to stop running from the pain and start living again. James nodded slowly. I think you're right. He looked down at Emma, now fully asleep in his arms, then at Lily, fighting sleep but losing the battle. Grace, there's something else I need to say. What's that? Thank you. His voice was thick with emotion. Thank you for loving my girls when I was too lost in my own grief to do it properly. Thank you for every midnight feeding, every diaper change, every hour of sleep you lost. Thank you for being there when I wasn't. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. James looked at her directly. You could have just done the minimum. Kept them fed and safe. But you didn't. You loved them. You got to know them. You learned that Emma is cautious and Lily is brave. You danced for them at 3 a.m. to make them smile. That's not just a job. That's love. Grace wiped her eyes. They made it easy to love them. Can I tell you something that's going to sound terrible? James asked. Grace waited. I resented you sometimes, he admitted. When I'd come home from work and they'd run to you instead of me. When you knew what their cries meant, and I didn't. When they'd say, Mama, while looking at you, even though I'd corrected them 100 times. He took a shaky breath. I resented you because you were being the parent I should have been. And instead of stepping up and doing better, I just worked more hours. Hid even deeper. Because it was easier than facing the truth. What truth? Grace asked gently. That I'm terrified. The words came out as a whisper. I'm absolutely terrified of being both parents. Of messing them up. of failing them. Sarah was supposed to be here. She was the one who knew about children. She'd read all the books, taken all the classes. I was just along for the ride. He looked at his sleeping daughters. When she died, I felt like half of me died too. And I didn't know how to be a whole parent when I felt like half a person. So you hired me to fill in the missing half, Grace said, understanding.
Yes.
And you did it perfectly. Too perfectly. These girls adore you. James smiled sadly. Do you know what Emma's first real word was? Grace shook her head. Dada work, James said. Not dada and then work as separate words. Dada work as one concept. Because every time she pointed at my office door, that's what you told her. Dada's working. So in her little mind, that's who I am. Not dada. Dada work. One thing. Grace's face fell. I'm so sorry. I never meant. No, don't apologize, James interrupted. You were telling her the truth. That is what I've been. But starting now, I'm going to be just dada. Present. Here. Involved. He stood carefully, both girls asleep now. Help me put them down? Together, they laid the twins in their cribs. Emma immediately turned on her side, thumb going into her mouth. Lily sprawled out like a starfish, taking up as much space as possible in her small crib. They're so different, James marveled. Wait until they start really talking, Grace said with a smile. Emma thinks about every word. Lily just babbles constantly. James realized with a start that he didn't know this. Didn't know which of his daughters talked more. Didn't know their sleep positions or their quirks or 1,000 other little details. But he was going to learn. Grace, go get some sleep, he said. Real sleep. If they wake up tonight, I've got them. Are you sure? Positive. I've got 6 months of night duty to make up for. Grace hesitated at the door. Mr. Richardson? One more thing. What's that? Your wife, Grace said carefully. I never knew her, but from everything you've told me about her, from the photos around the house, from the way you talk about her even when it hurts, I think she'd be really proud of you right now. Fresh tears came to James's eyes. I hope so. God, I really hope so. After Grace left, James settled into the rocking chair. He'd bought this chair when Sarah was pregnant, before they knew they were having twins. It was supposed to be Sarah's chair. She'd picked out the fabric, a soft blue with white stars. She never got to sit in it, not really. She'd died before the girls were old enough to need rocking. James had avoided this chair for 16 months. But now he sat in it, surrounded by the smell of baby powder and the soft breathing of his daughters, and he felt Sarah's presence. I'm sorry I took so long, he whispered into the quiet room. I'm sorry I hid from them, from you, from everything. But I'm here now. I'm really here. He watched Emma and Lily sleep, their little chests rising and falling. They looked so peaceful, so perfect. I don't know how to do this without you, he continued. I don't know how to be the dad they need. But I'm going to try. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be there for the midnight wakings and the sick days and the first words and the first steps and everything else. A memory came to him suddenly. Sarah, 8 months pregnant, lying on the couch with her hands on her huge belly. You're going to be such a good dad, she'd said. You know how I know? How? He'd asked, kissing her forehead. Because you're already worried about being a good dad. Bad fathers don't worry. They don't care. But you care so much it scares you. That's what makes you perfect for this. James hadn't thought about that conversation in over a year. But now, sitting in Sarah's rocking chair, watching their daughters sleep, he heard her words again. You care so much it scares you. She was right. He did care. He'd always cared. He'd just been too afraid to show it, too worried he'd fail, too broken by grief to function. But tonight, something had shifted. Seeing Grace dancing in those yellow rubber gloves, seeing his daughter's joy, hearing that he'd been absent for every single midnight waking for 6 months, it had broken through his defenses. Shattered the wall he'd built around his heart. Around 4 a.m., Lily started to fuss. James stood immediately, his heart pounding. This was it. His first real test. Lily's fussing turned into crying. James picked her up, and she felt so small in his arms. "Shush, sweetheart," he murmured. "Daddy's here." She cried harder, her little face scrunched up, tears rolling down her cheeks. James panicked for a moment. What did she need? Was she hungry?
Wet.
In pain? Then he remembered what Grace had said. Sometimes they just want comfort. So he held her close, swaying gently. He started humming, then singing softly. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star." He couldn't remember the rest of the words, so he just hummed the melody. Lily's crying quieted to whimpers. She grabbed onto his shirt with her tiny fist, holding tight. "That's it," James whispered. "I've got you. Daddy's got you." He walked around the room, still swaying, still humming. And slowly, gradually, Lily relaxed. Her breathing evened out. She was asleep again. James felt a surge of pride so intense it almost made him laugh. He'd done it. He'd comforted his daughter. Such a simple thing, something Grace did multiple times every single night, but to him, in this moment, it felt like winning a gold medal. He carefully put Lily back in her crib. She stirred slightly, but didn't wake. Emma slept on, undisturbed. James sat back in the rocking chair and pulled out his phone. He sent an email to his assistant. "Cancel all meetings for the next 2 weeks. Family emergency. I'll be working from home on limited hours. Redirect anything urgent to Tom." Then he sent another email to his company's HR department. "Effective immediately, implementing new parental leave policy. All employees get 6 months paid leave for new children. Also looking into backup childcare services and flexible work arrangements. Let's meet next week to discuss details." If he was going to change his life, he might as well help other parents change theirs too. As the sun started to rise, painting the Seattle sky in shades of pink and orange, James sat in the nursery watching his daughters sleep. Emma with her thumb in her mouth, careful and thoughtful even in sleep. Lily sprawled out, brave and bold, taking up space. For the first time since Sarah died, James didn't feel like a failure. He didn't feel broken or lost or incomplete. He felt like a father. A real father who'd been given a second chance. All because he woke up at 2:47 a.m. to find a young woman in yellow rubber gloves, dancing her heart out to make his children smile. Sometimes angels don't have wings. Sometimes they wear yellow gloves and dance in the middle of the night. Sometimes they love your children when you've forgotten how to love yourself. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they help you remember who you were always meant to be. James looked at his daughters, and he made them a promise. "I'm here now," he whispered, "and I'm never leaving again." The sun rose higher. A new day was beginning. And for the first time in 16 months, James Richardson was ready to live it. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to think about the unsung heroes in your life. The people who show up when it's hard, who love when it's easier to walk away, who dance in yellow gloves at 3 in the morning just to make someone smile. Thank them. Appreciate them. And remember, it's never too late to become the person you were always meant to be. Thanks for your watching. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to the Story Room for meaningful stories that inspire and teach life lessons.